Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to walk through the live tracking platform or the live tracking website that we provide free of charge along with your GPS tracker. This is quite a long tutorial, but please feel free to pause as you go through. There are a lot of topics and a lot of sections, so please bear with me. We'll get through it together. Okay, so when you have your account registered, you'll see just above this tutorial there's actually instructions on how to identify your user account. Your user account is already created for you. The user account is essentially the letters GPS and the last 5 digits of your IMEI number. So if the last 5 digits of your IMEI number are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then your user account is GPS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's as simple as that. Your default password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We do strongly recommend you change your password the moment you log in, just because for security reasons it's much safer to have everything locked down just so as nobody else uses your account. Okay, so here we are. The screen you're looking at is the actual live tracking website. It's called LiveTrackingcom. So as you can see in this top corner here, just simple LiveTrackingcom will take you to this page. On this page you'll see you have a username, password, language. The contact us section is actually for the manufacturers and isn't relevant to your GPS, so you can ignore this. It has 3 buttons, Android app, login and close. The Android app, if you click on this, what it'll actually do, you'll see it actually downloads the app here. So you can download it on your desktop, laptop, transfer it to your Android phone, or you can open ftracking.com on your smartphone and download this directly to your smartphone. What I'm going to do is just close this for the time being. It's a pretty straightforward installation, similar to that of the Play Store. But you can get that here. Unfortunately, we don't have an iPhone app at present. There is one in development, and it is due for release later in 2016. If you keep track of our website and our Facebook page, you will see when that is released. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my Vision One demo account logged in currently, or the credentials entered in. So it's as simple as putting those in and clicking login. It will eventually take you to the page that you're hoping to see, which is a large mapping page. On the left hand side is your control panel, if you like. It's where all your GPS devices would be listed. So if you had 10, you would see them all listed down here. For the purposes of this demo, I only have 2 devices, Vision One Demo and Vision One Demo 2. As you can see, there are 2 colors here. The colors represent online and offline. The yellow color means the device is offline. The red means it's actually connected and online. So in one of the previous tutorials, we would have walked you through the APN, or the access point name setup. This particular tutorial enables the data connection between your GPS tracker and this live tracking website. So if you do that correctly, you will see that it enables the tracker to come online. If your tracker is still showing as yellow, the culprit, I guess, is usually the APN setup. Is usually incorrect. So on one of the previous steps, you will see common APN settings. There is a link to a document, and you can go online as well and search for your service provider's APN settings. Once you set that up correctly, you will see that your tracker will come online. Okay. Just to give you another view, across the top here is another part of the control panel. Starting on this end, you have the logout button. It's a straightforward logout. Help Center, not overly useful for the TE207S model. This particular live tracking platform is designed for many different trackers, most notably fleet and vehicle tracking. So a lot of the terminology is vehicle related, but it can be transposed to personal trackers as well. So I'll show you the terminology as we go through so you can understand how it relates to you and your tracker. Management Center, if you just click on this, you can see that's where you modify your password. So when you come in, one of the first things to do is just enter in your new password, click OK, and you're safe as houses. Okay. Also in Management Center, you've got option to change the skin and the color of the background as well. Base station does not relate to this model of GPS tracker. Report Center. When you click on some of these buttons, what actually occurs is a new window opens. A lot of our customers ask us, how do you get back to the original page, as there's no back button? What I'll actually do is I'll pull this down. You'll actually see it's a separate window. So all you need to do is close that red X in that top corner and you're back to the main screen. So if I open it again, the Report Center has a series of useful reports. Again, some of them will be useful for your personal GPS tracker. A lot of them, such as fuel level report, speeding report, stop engine report, relate to other functions and other features of trackers that we also sell from a commercial perspective as well. So not everything in here will relate, but you can browse the reports and see what's useful for you. Okay, the next thing is Manage. I'm actually going to skip that for the time being. Operate Center actually does not relate to the TE207S model, so nothing in this particular menu will help you. Play History I will come back to, and Live Tracking will come back to. So this is probably the main menu along this ribbon at the top. So if we just click on Manage, a new window opens. Again, to close, you just X off in the corner. So for those of you taking some notes, Vehicle Manage is really the only section that you need to be concerned with, and that sits under the core menu. If you actually minimize this little button here, you'll see there's actually four drop-down menus. We will be looking at Core and Geofence. Alarm and Daily are not functions relating to your personal tracker. So if we go back into Core, within Core it's only Vehicle Manage that we need to be concerned with. So if I click on that, you can actually then again see the two trackers that I have currently online. So if I highlight that one, you can see I can then edit. This brings you to your main configuration page. We will already have the GPRS ID entered here. That's essentially your IMEI number of your tracker. So we have these set up for you. This is the model. As you can see, there are various models of tracker that we deal with. The personal GPS is TE. Plate number is completely up to you. This is the name you wish to give your tracker. You can call that anything you want. SIM number, while not mandatory, doesn't have to be an entered field. When you're dealing with VisionOneGPS and calling us for support purposes, it is a handy field to have entered. So if you can enter that in international format, so for the US it would be +1, and then whatever your cell number would be, just dropping off any leading zeros. Again, you don't have to provide that if you don't wish to. However, if we are trying to troubleshoot some issues with your tracker, we may have to ask you for your SIM number. It's just easier and quicker if we can come into your account and actually see it here without actually then having to go back and ask you. Everything else is pretty much up to you, whether you want to put it in. So for example, the tracker that I use, I actually do use it for a vehicle. I put base mileage, the brand of the car, the type, the color. You can put all this information in, and on the right hand side here you can choose the icon that best suits you. Once you have all that information in, just click on save. And again, you can do that for all the different devices that you have if you've got more than one. Just X off in the corner and that will take you back to the main screen. Oh, my apologies, sorry, I did skip one. Let me go back into Manage again. And if I minimize core, I'll now take you in through the Geofence routing options. Okay, if we expand this, within this menu, you can define a fence. You can define a routine. What that is essentially is, to give you an example, if your kid takes a specific road to school, you can define the set of roads or series of roads that your child takes, and if they deviate from that specific routine or route, you can set up an alarm to have the tracker text you and send text alerts. Set area speed is simply a geofence boundary that if the tracker is within that boundary, you can set a specific speed. So if you've just bought your teenager their first car, you can actually monitor their speed in certain areas. We have a lot of customers that use this function for that particular reason, and they also have a tracker in the vehicle as well, monitoring their speed, because it does have a velocity tracker as part of the GPS as well, so you can actually monitor the speed thresholds with the tracker itself. Set road speed unfortunately isn't a function for this particular model, so it's just these top three. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into define fence for the time being, and let that load. So what you'll see is it actually hones in on Sydney, Australia. We've just had that set as our main headquarters, but we're actually based in Brisbane, which is north of Sydney. So if I click on school fence, you'll see that it actually jumps up to Brisbane. And if I zoom in on this area here, I've just found a school complex that has a nice, unusually shaped boundary. And what we can do here is show you how to set the geofence. So if I take you up to this top corner in the fence, so you've different shapes. You've got rectangle, circle, and polygon. Rectangle is pretty much just a set rectangle shape. Circle. Polygon is what we have outlined here with this particular shape here. So you can define sort of unusual edges, if you like. You can put in the name of the fence. So again, you can have 100 different types of geofence and unlimited amount of areas that you can set geofences for. So this is the actual complex. Again, this is Google Maps. You can switch between map and satellite. So if I click on satellite, you can actually see the actual boundary of the school complex there. Down here in this area, you've got some sports fields, tennis courts, basketball courts, etc. And then you've got all the buildings. I'll just switch back to map for the purposes of the demonstration. So if I clear this and I just let's call it new fence. And if I use rectangle and click new, you'll see that disappears. I can just click and create a rectangle. over that entire area. If I don't need to be specific to boundaries, I can just do this. And then just click again and it'll set that boundary. That means that if you're coming up here with your tracker and you enter the boundary, you'll get an alert if you set it for in. You can set it for in or out. So you can set a boundary and actually have the tracker in here, and if the tracker leaves, then you can set it to get alerts also. This is mostly used for our customers who have elderly or special needs people in their lives, such as Alzheimer's sufferers or dementia sufferers. So if they want to make sure that their loved ones are safe, they actually create a geofence to make sure that they are where they're supposed to be and they're not wandering off. So quite a big feature for this personal GPS tracker is the geofence. What I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to delete the new fence, and I'll just show you then one with a circle. Again, same concept. You can move the map, you can click, and then, oh, that's not supposed to do that. Let me just cancel. Let me try that again. There we go. So you can actually then draw the circle. Again, it's personal preference as to whether you think the circle is appropriate, the rectangle. My favorite is obviously the polygon, because you can set the exact boundary and make sure that they're not entering into neighboring properties, etc. So let me again just click on new fence and delete, and let's change it to poly and new. Now, with every single GPS tracker on the market, there is obviously a degree of error. We have moving satellites around the Earth trying to pinpoint a fixed location on the ground. It does have a degree of error. Now, obviously, the more you spend, the more accurate that technology can be, but it's not a precise technology by any stretch of the imagination. So please leave some wiggle room when it comes to the geofence. So, for example, if I were to just slightly zoom in there, we have the appropriately named school road. So if I was to say that there's a fence, like a physical fence around this boundary, I would like to give at least 5 to 10 meters either side, approximately 10 to 20 yards, maybe even 30 yards extra, just to allow for the GPS tracker to jump around a little bit as the satellites pass overhead. So what I can do there is just click, then go to, so this is a straight road, so we can click there. I can click down to this corner. And the trick with the polygon is to always move in a circular motion, never double back on yourself. So long as you keep working around like the numbers on a clock, either clockwise or counterclockwise, the polygon will work perfectly. So if I do another one here, maybe here, here, and maybe out here, you can see that it encompasses the entire skull area. Okay, so let's finish that. So that will save that geofence. As you can see, it's just popped in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, there's another little ribbon across the top. If we just close that define fence, what I can show you now is define routine. I've prepared one already on the same area, so if I click on school, it'll jump back to the same area. So, as an example, this click routine shows, for argument's sake, let's say this house here is where you live. This is the same school precinct area, and let's say it's a direct route right straight up to the school and in the front gate. So you have already a fence around the school. So this is now protecting your child, even your pet. Some people put these on their pets. In some areas of the world, you know, their pets go to school with them and walk back and forward as well with parents. So they want to make sure that the animals are safe too. So again, it's the same concept. You can put a title, you can click new, and then you can actually just draw the points along the road leading up to the school. And again, that will have a degree of error with the satellites passing overhead, but the define routine has a built-in error rate to allow for that. However, in saying that, the define routine is not my favorite option for this particular scenario. So if I were to just zoom out slightly there, let me just zoom back in a little. What I would actually do is just define another fence around this area. So if I just open up define fence again, you can do that with a polygon. So if I go to school, it takes me back to this area. So what I could do here, I think we said that we lived down here somewhere. I think it was this house. So what I would do in this particular scenario, let me just come out a little bit, is do a polygon, let's just call it routine, click new, and give it an extra little bit of wide berth, same as we did with the fence. So let's just click, let's say here, you can put it around the school as well if you like, and that side of the road. And let's take it to there, let's take it to there, and let's take it to there. So you can actually see then you've got a new polygon boundary around the whole thing. Which is why I love the polygon, especially if you're in close proximity to the fence that you want to define. So this is one fence that rules them all, if you like, and you don't actually have to define a routine for that. It gives a little bit more bandwidth for error, but again, if you want to be more precise and more with more precision, you can do the define routine. It's completely a personal preference, and I'll leave that up to you. Okay, moving on to set area speed. I'll just quickly show you this. So with set area speed, let's do school fence again. You can actually, let's see, take it back to the same area. Let's call it speed. You can click on new. And again, in this area here, let's say, again, using the example, you provide a new car to your sweet 16 daughter, and you want to make sure she's driving nice and slow and within the speed limits. You can then set an area speed boundary as well. So if the tracker is detected moving faster than the speed you've allocated for this particular road, for example, then you get a text alert to your phone, and you can ground them the minute they get home, or whatever it is you choose as your personal brand of teenage punishment. Anyway, okay, that's everything for this section. I'm just going to close the entire screen down. What I want to show you now is the play history. Now, I don't actually have a tracker out in a vehicle to show you something live, but I did do a few days ago an example, and what I can do is show you then how to replay the history and what the actual live tracking looks like. Okay, so here's the screen again. The plate number is the, remember, let me just close this down. So if we go into Manage and back into Vehicle Manage, Vision 1 and Edit, your plate number is whatever you call your tracker. So if you're calling your tracker John, then that's what your plate will show up when you go into this play history. So for the purposes of the demo, you can enter the plate number there, or you can click on this button and it will bring up a list of your trackers. Just double click on whichever one you want. The start date, so I did this a couple of days ago. I know the time, it was quite early. I think it was about 7:20. And the end time, you can just make that, let's just say it was 8 o'clock. And over here is the play history button. You don't need to worry about the exclude parking. Again, that's a feature for another type of tracker. So if you click on play history, what you'll see is the trace information is loading here at the bottom, and you'll see that something has come up on the screen. So I can just zoom in here. Go one more in. So if I go to number 1, click on number 1, and up here is the play button. This is what I actually recorded with the tracker the other night. So as you can see, it tracks reasonably accurately along the major roads. The update is every 30 seconds. That is the minimum you can go with this tracker. So we're coming up to a series of houses and canals, and I just took a drive down one of them to show you that it does quite accurately track along every single one. So the 30-second interval, which is why it's deviating from the road in some places, because it just draws a straight line through every interval. And it's just coming back to where I started the actual drive, and it stops there. So the nifty thing about this is with every interval location that it does provide, over here you'll see it has address. Double click to get Google address. What this does is it actually takes the nearest address to where the tracker was at that particular time. It also gives the speed that the tracker was doing when the location was taken. So as you can see, when I turned on the tracker, I was in a stationary vehicle, so the speed was nothing. And as I took off, you can see the speed getting up. I think here was a set of traffic lights, so I actually stopped again. So you can actually see the times if your tracker spent any large amount of times at any one location, and then you can go over here to see what that address was. So if again using a teenage son or daughter, if they're not supposed to be at a particular friend's house, then you can see if they have this tracker how long they've been at that house and actually confirm the address that they were at any given point in time. So it's a nifty little, so let's look at number 6. Let's look at that one. I'll just double click on that, and it gives the actual physical address you can see there. And what we'll do, if we just zoom into number 6, as you can see, this is the nearest closest physical address to where the tracker was, even though it was out on the road. This is the nearest Google address, so that's why it lodges that particular address. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's at that address, it's the nearest recordable address that the tracker was near. So just be very mindful of the fact that it's using the closest address. not necessarily at that address. Okay, so you can do that for a whole bunch of different addresses, and it'll take you on the map as well. Again, 30 seconds is the lowest time interval update you can set, but I think that's reasonably sufficient for most users. It sends too much data otherwise, and you just get too many points jumping around the screen. Every 30 seconds is sufficient, especially if you're live tracking. So the red line remains and will track as the tracker moves, and that's one of the best features that we have with the GPS tracker. Okay, so let me just close this screen down. So that's the playing history. For the live tracking, there's two ways to do the live tracking. So I can so first of all, I'll click on the actual tracker as to where I am now. I can do two things. So if you actually hover over the vehicle here, it'll take a plate number with the IMEI and the name and the latitude and longitude, etc., all of the information. Vehicle info is the same screen as I showed you earlier with this setup, so you can come in here and change. So that's actually a quicker way to get to that screen. It's just find your tracker, hover, and then go to vehicle info. Live track is the fastest way to live track with the vehicle. Unfortunately, message and take photo are not functions of this personal GPS tracker. They are for different models. So these can be ignored. Up here, you can either click here for live track, or you can come down here to click for live track. Personally, I recommend here because it remembers the vehicle you want to track, and you don't have to put it in. You can see it's already entered here, whereas if I used the other live track option, it would be blank and I would have to then go and insert it. Again, all you need to do then is to click on live track, and it will actually live track for you if the tracker's moving. So in this instance, I'm not going anywhere, so it's not actually going to move and show the red line. But all you would see is what I showed you in the demonstration before with the playback. And I think that's pretty much about it. So if I close that down, that is absolutely everything. You can actually come here and see the current location of your tracker live tracking as well. So if I were to double click on that, you would actually see my physical address as it is now. But I think we've covered absolutely everything you need to cover. Just be mindful again, yellow means your tracker is offline, which means that there is an issue with your APN, or it could be as simple as the tracker is turned off. Red means it's online and it's working, so the live tracking option is definitely there for you. Any issues with being able to connect your APN to the live tracking website, please contact us at support@VisionOneGPS.com, and we'll gladly help you work out your APN issues. We don't have the ability to program that before you purchase, because we do give you the option to pick any service provider that you wish, and it's just physically impossible to program a tracker with the hundreds and thousands of service provider APNs that are out there. Not only because it's impractical to do that, it's also a piece of information that service providers change quite frequently. So we do recommend you contact your service provider to get the APN settings to set up your tracker. Searching online might give you old APN information that you think is correct. It states it's correct, but it's actually out of date. So do yourself a favor, pick up the phone, contact your service provider, ask them for their current data APN connection settings, and they should give you that straight away. Configure that as per the instructions in the setup guides, and you're all set. That's all for this tutorial. I hope you've learned as much as you can with using this online tracking platform. Again, if you do have any questions, please contact us. Okay, thanks guys.